Alrighty, ladies. And we got a deep Ask the Aunties this week. So what time is it? Ask
Ask
your
your
aunties.
aunties.
All right, so bear with me on this one because it's a long one, but it's deep. So it says, "Hey, aunties, I have a question. I locked my husband out of the house because he was tearing it up, and I was coming home from work to broken glass. Prior to, and then in parentheses, prior to this, he was not bringing his ass home and would not talk to me. He slashed all my tires while our son was home because he is convinced I popped one of his tires. He ripped his son that I didn't birth, pick out of our kids' baby pics because he came out as trans. First gay, then trans. He tried to commit suicide before this because of it. My reaction was not to rip him out of the family. I said, would you rather have a dead son or an alive daughter, gay son, referring to him coming out as gay first? So now I'm the bitch because I said his sexuality and identity has nothing to do with you. And then she says in parentheses, and I'm the one who's a PK. I get the black male ego and pride, but damn. So I locked him out. I do not feel bad, but he says I'm single-handedly ruined our marriage by changing the locks. I think he did by his actions. I tried talking to him. He refused to talk. I've asked to go to counseling. He refuses. He has been gone since the end of August, and I told him he could come back in September, but he refused and got an apartment in another town saying I put him out. I know this is a lot of word vomiting, but I worked hard as a single mother for years, and I bought the home we're in, and I went to school full time and worked full time, and because of this, he's emasculated. Okay, so we're almost at the end here. And she says, "Am I supposed to sell my house for him to feel like a man? I'm so confused, and we have another boy and a girl that are young in their teens. What does this teach them? Like, what does this teach my daughter about diminishing herself for a man or a son how to treat women? He says I don't need him, but you are wanted. Isn't that better than being needed? I just want you all's opinion as a black man. Am I wrong?" So this is a lot, y'all. A whole lot. So really it's talking about this masculinity thing within the black culture and that ego and that pride. Is she wrong for locking the doors and kicking him out, giving him a moment to chill out and say you could come back, and then now he didn't choose to come back either?
No. No,
Only
you're
black
not. No,
man
you're
to be
not
wrong.
wrong. I mean, at the end of the day, you have a responsibility not only to yourself and the relationship that you're in, but also to the children and the example that you as parents, regardless of birth or not birth, are setting for those children to create a stable and safe and healthy environment for which those kids can grow up in. And if preventing somebody who's done these he had me at tore up the house. Like
The
what grown ass
period.
man tears what grown ass man tearing up somebody's house? That don't make no sense to me at all. But and however, the fact that you took a stand to say I will not tolerate this behavior and you will not be a destructive force within my household impacting our children, my children, however it's broken down, I think that's absolutely you're within every bit of your right to be able to do that because it is a matter of protection at that point. And you're dealing with somebody who clearly is has anger issues, has maturity issues, and has proven themselves seemingly time and time and time again to not respect you, the kids, and only respects what they want. And they're basically throwing these temper tantrums as a way for them to get attention. So my short answer to all that is no, girl. You did the right thing, and don't double back on your decision. Like if he got a whole other apartment, that nigga wanted another apartment. If he wanted to,
Yeah, you're right.
if he wanted to make it work as a man, he would have made it work. But instead, he acted like a little bitch and pedestrian. He was being very pedestrian.
Yeah.
But he was acting like a spoiled little brat and threw a temper tantrum, a grown ass man temper tantrum that is I don't want to say illegal in some regards, but I do want to say that it is incredibly destructive to the emotional well-being, the spiritual well-being of you and your children, and that is,
And your
I don't want to say
marriage.
unforgivable, and the marriage, but that is damn near close to unforgivable. So
Yeah.
my opinion is, don't double back. He's got to do the work, and if he wants to be back in, don't sell your house,
No,
girl.
no.
You work for that. You
Yeah.
work for that. But
Mhm.
if he wants to make it work, he's got to do the work. What you think, Boo?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, first off, I mean, my feelings aside, I would have been like, not my children. You're not acting like this around my kids. Like, and that would have just been that would have been it. It would have been it. I wouldn't have been second guessing it because, and you mentioned it in the question, about, what are you teaching your children by tolerating this? And the truth is, you're not teaching them the correct things about, one, a healthy relationship, two, communication, and three, self-worth by continuing to allow this to happen. Because if their own mama and daddy are doing this shit, then they're going to expect that this is what a relationship should look like. And then they gonna have that issue too. We got to start breaking all of these generational curses and etc.
Mhm.
by teaching our children that it stops now. This is
Mhm.
just not it, you know. So that alone would just be like, I'm done. I'm out, you know. And I kind of think if you're honest with yourself too, you probably know the answer because if y'all married, that means you didn't seen this shit before. This ain't brand new
This ain't the first
behavior
time.
to you.
Mm-hmm.
So if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, bitch, it's a
Affleck.
motherfucking duck. Okay, Affleck.
It's
Okay,
not
Affleck,
Affleck.
bitch. I mean, but that's real.
And
But
I guess
that's
that's a
real
goose,
though.
but anyway, close enough. They play cousins.
Right. So like I get one to be strong and wanting to like, upstand your vows and like really just kind of see things and but you don't got to ride your relationship off a cliff, especially if it's unhealthy. You don't need to sacrifice so much for so little. And that's what it sounds like you'll be doing by continuing to allow this to happen in your relationship and your home, you know.
Yeah.
And like Dewan said, that dude got a whole other ass apartment. His mind ain't
In the
thinking about
town
your
over.
well-being.
Mm-mm.
He ain't thinking
Mm-mm.
about your well-being because if he was thinking about your well-being, like Dewan said, he would have made the choice to do what he needed to do to go back home. But instead, he said, "Fuck you," and bought an apartment. That's literally what he did
He
by
said,
buying
fuck
an
you and
apartment.
the kids and the family.
Yep, literally.
Right.
He said, "I choose me,"
Yep. Yep.
and it's time you do it too.
Period. Dewan and Jarrell nailed it. I like thank you for sticking up for the trans daughter
Mm-hmm.
and putting like, and I
Mm-hmm.
think you probably added the PK part in there just because we all kind of have like this religion part that might have been an internal struggle for you, but at the end of the day you said this is my daughter, I got to protect her. Even though I didn't quote unquote birth her, you still had that parental guidance and saying no, I need to
Mm-hmm.
protect her. This whole thing is prevalent in the black community, but it's just prevalent in just men that when you don't get your way, like this whole just emasculating and masculinity thing, like I just don't get how it trumps doing the right thing, especially when it comes to like your marriage, your family, your kid, like that part. If you want to really break it down to being like a man and all this stuff is really taking care of what you need to take care of. Like that's where you're being a strong human being. Like
Mm-hmm.
throwing the temper tantrums and all that shit does not mean you are being quote unquote a man. Like that's so wild to me. And I agree with Jarrell. We need to break these generational curses now. We need to do the work now. And if not, it's just going to continue to be a habitual nature. So I'm glad you changed them locks. You said
Right.
you ain't getting this house today, Playboy, and
Mm-mm.
let him go and get his own apartment. And I agree with Dewan. This is borderline criminal, and I get being married, trying to abstain to your vows and all this stuff, but there's a point where if it's danger to you and
Mm-hmm.
your kids, fuck them vows because he is not holding up his end of the deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like you've done everything you could do, quite frankly, because you've asked him to go to counseling and things like that, to work on it, to better himself and to better the communication in the marriage and things like that. And there's only so long you could give a person, and if they showing that they don't want to do it, you can't make them do it. But guess what? You could do what needs to be done for you and your family and get yourself out that situation, because I agree with Jarrell. This is a habitual thing. You saw this before. You saw this when you was dating. Like, this ain't the first time it came up. You just thought he would mellow over time. And maybe he mellowed here and there, but he's still having them temper tantrums that are popping in. So if he's not going to want to do the work, and it doesn't mean you're not going to have emotional maybe response to the breakup too, and maybe the potential divorce and things like that, because you loved them. And so there's still going to be some emotional things that you're going to have to work out and continue to work on yourself when you're done with this situation, potentially. That's my advice. Get out of it. Run, girl, run. but still put yourself through the therapy, because there's still going to be emotional collateral damage that comes from this, unfortunately. That you probably already have, really, that you're going to need to work through before you get into any new kind of relationship in the future. But hang in there. This is wild. This is wild. When this one came through, I was just like, ooh, we got to talk about this ASAP.
Two thoughts come to mind. One thing that I've always heard that I try to live by, not always successful, but I try to live by, which is you teach people how to treat you.
Sure.
So when you think about the behavior that you accept or that you forgive and then you allow to happen over and over and over again, what you're doing is you're teaching him how to treat you. Oh yeah, well, I can act a fool, but as long as I give her time to cool off, her, not him, her time to cool off of the shit that I did to you, and then come back, 2 to 3 days later or whatever, and take her out to dinner or whatever, it's going to be okay, and I'll be back in the house. Like, you teach people how to treat you. So, I say kudos to you for taking the first step, which is creating a boundary, a physical boundary, by locking them out of the house, because I think that's phenomenal. I think the other thing is, I would challenge you to think about, what does the future hold for you, and what does the future hold for you? Meaning, what's important for you? I get this notion of, like, I want to be a person of forgiveness and whatever, but forgiveness does not mean that you excuse the behavior.
Right.
Absolutely. So you can forgive a person for the things that they did, but if you enable them to do it again because you continue to fall into these patterns of, I'm forgiving them, but really what you're doing is excusing.
Yeah.
You're excusing. There's a difference between forgiveness and excusing behavior and not holding people accountable. So the fact that he's on his own, the fact that he chose to get his own apartment instead of like staying with a friend or staying with a relative or just getting out of town and coming back, staying in a hotel, to cool himself down or whatever. But this nigga got a whole new, pardon me, this guy got a whole other apartment. Got a whole other apartment.
Yeah.
That speaks. This is not.
He's trying to teach you a lesson by getting an apartment like that. Come on, man. Fuck out of here.
Who does? You go through all the damn paperwork and the background checks and the credit card check or the credit checks and all this stuff for a lesson for you. And now he's stuck with this whole thing. Let's just say hypothetically, you guys get back together. Now you got your rent and this other rent that you were responsible for 12 months.
Period. And I would have left after the slash of the tires. Tires are expensive, bitch. I'm like, not the tigers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And watch them people that are around you that are treating you like Djokovic people around him, trying to that are also in broken ass relationships with people that don't respect them and their kids and doing fucked up shit with them, giving you advice, talking about, forgive him, y'all been through too much together. No,
we didn't need to go through too much.
No. Actually, that part is right. Y'all been through too much together.
Period.
That part they got right, but the getting back together and whatnot, if it's, I challenge you to think about what this says, not only to you and your own self-worth, but I challenge you to think about what this says to your children.
And it sounds like you know that answer. It's you're on, like they said, you're on that path. So whew, let us know what
Yeah.
happens. Like
We rooting for
We
you
feel
though.
for
we
you.
are rooting for
Yeah,
you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
And you got this. I'm like, come on, you were a single mother for that long and put yourself through school, got a house. You got this. You got
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
I also feel like this is not because I could feel the guilt in
Yeah.
the way that this is written, like, oh, I want to be a good wife, I want to be a, or a good partner, I want to
Yeah.
da 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 whatever. And this is not a reflection of you. His
No.
behavior or their
No.
behavior is not a reflection of you and what you did not do in the relationship. That is a reflection of their choices. And that's a very important mental and emotional separation that you have to get your arms wrapped
Mm-hmm.
around in order for you to feel good about moving forward, or in order for you to get to a place where you can move forward. Because if you're still holding on to the fact that you could have done something when these are choices that he made,
Yep.
you know, it may have been in reaction to something you did, but everybody is accountable for their own actions.
And we
So,
want you safe, most importantly, you and your family.
yeah.
Stay safe because clearly he doesn't have the capacity to stop and realize his actions. So this might even be brewing even more in his mind that like you let him in and one more night he snap again, who knows what's gonna go, so please be safe, keep your family safe, and like Jarrell said, we're rooting for you, and
Mm-hmm.
thank you for being vulnerable, for sharing this too, by the way. Like, whew, saw this one come through, I'm like, whoa, they really trust your aunties. I'm like, that's a heavy one.
But
So
you know what?
thank you.
This is so relatable for so many
Yeah.
people, and whether it's and not necessarily the exact circumstances, but just being with the wrong person and
Yeah.
allowing yourself to repeat the pattern. It's so relatable. So
It's
yeah, thank you
true.
for sharing that, and let us know how things work out. But just know that you made the right decision.
Yeah, absolutely. You are not wrong. So continue to send your questions to aya@minorityareport.com or DM us. Obviously, we could keep a lot of your names safe and sound. Like, we will not be sharing names if you don't want the name shared, and because we appreciate the vulnerability. So